I'm 27 and my older sister Vanessa is 30. Our relationship has always been rocky. She's the kind of person who thrives on competition, even when no one else is playing. When we were kids, it was grades, extracurriculars, who had the better Christmas presents. She always needed to be the best. I never cared much for it. I've always been more independent, keeping to myself and focusing on my own life instead of getting sucked into pointless rivalries. But Vanessa, she lives for them. Her need to win didn't fade as we got older. If anything, it got worse. She married Jake 5 years ago, and from the outside, she tries to make their relationship look perfect. They have the nice house, the luxury vacations, the curated social media posts showing off their ideal life. But behind closed doors, it's obvious that Vanessa is the one calling all the shots. Jake is easygoing, too easygoing. He doesn't seem to have any control over their finances. Vanessa brags about being the breadwinner and makes it clear that she holds the purse strings. She loves to throw subtle jabs at anyone who isn't as successful as she thinks she is, including me. I've been with my fiancé Aaron for 3 years. We love each other, and that's what matters. Unlike Vanessa, I don't measure relationships by financial status or how they look to other people. Aaron has always been upfront with me. Before we met, he went through a rough time. He had a business that failed, leading to bankruptcy, but he worked hard to rebuild. He's in a much better place now, but Vanessa only sees the past. The second she found out about it, she latched onto the idea that I was settling for someone with financial baggage. At first, it was just snide remarks. Little comments like, you could have had someone more stable, or I just worry about your future. I ignored them. I thought if I didn't react, she'd get bored, but she didn't stop. She escalated. 1 week before Vanessa and Jake's big vow renewal ceremony, because of course, she needed a second wedding to remind everyone how perfect she thinks her marriage is, I noticed something was off at a family gathering. People were acting weird. A few relatives gave me these sympathetic looks, others avoided me entirely. Eventually, one of my cousins let it slip. Vanessa had been gossiping. She told the whole family about Aaron's bankruptcy, twisting it to make it sound like he was still struggling, like I was making a huge mistake by marrying him. She implied I was being naive, that I was sacrificing my future for someone beneath me. I was livid. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the way she did it, pretending to be concerned while humiliating us behind our backs. When I confronted her, she brushed it off, smiling like she hadn't done anything wrong. I was just looking out for you, she said, as if spreading rumors about my fiancé was an act of kindness. I don't want you to regret anything. Aaron took it better than I did. He was disappointed, but he told me to let it go. She's not worth it, he said. She just wants a reaction. And maybe he was right, but I couldn't just let it slide. Not this time. Vanessa had spent her whole life tearing people down to make herself feel superior. It was time for her to get a taste of her own medicine. That's when I got an idea. If Vanessa wanted to play games, I'd make sure she lost. I started thinking about all the times she bragged about controlling their finances, the way she'd joke about how Jake wouldn't survive without her, how she made sure every major decision went through her first. It always rubbed me the wrong way. But now, with everything she had done, I saw it in a new light. So I did some research. I found something interesting. There's a whole category of financial abuse, where one partner controls all the money, leaving the other dependent and powerless. And then I found the perfect book, How to Spot Financial Abuse, a guide for recognizing control in marriage. The moment I saw it, I knew what I had to do. I ordered a beautifully wrapped copy and made sure it would be delivered in time for the vow renewal. Vanessa was all about appearances. This was going to be opened in front of everyone. I didn't tell anyone, not even Aaron. He probably would have told me to forget it, but this wasn't about revenge. This was about balance. Vanessa had spent years making other people feel small. She needed to learn that she wasn't untouchable. The vow renewal was just days away. I could already picture her reaction. She wanted a perfect event, a flawless performance where she could show off her perfect life. But this time she wouldn't be the one in control. She had set the stage. I was just making sure the audience got to see the truth. The venue was decorated like a wedding all over again. White roses everywhere, candlelit centerpieces, soft music playing in the background. Vanessa never did anything halfway. Aaron and I walked in, acting like nothing was wrong. The moment Vanessa spotted us, she hesitated for half a second before slipping into her usual performance, smiling wide, arms outstretched. But I caught the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, like she wasn't quite sure what I was planning. She walked over, arms outstretched, making a show of greeting me like we were best friends. Then, just loud enough for the people near us to hear, she said something about how she was so glad I was able to come despite my difficult situation. Her eyes flicked toward Aaron, then back to me with that fake sympathetic smile. I just smiled back. The gift table was set up right by the entrance, a long, white draped table stacked with elegantly wrapped boxes and gift bags. I made sure my gift was placed right in the center, where it couldn't be missed. I took my time adjusting the ribbon, making sure it looked just perfect. Across the room, I spotted Jake. He was standing near the bar, looking more subdued than usual. Usually he was right beside Vanessa, smiling along with whatever she said, but tonight he seemed distant. I walked up and casually asked if he was excited about the night. He forced a smile, nodded, and muttered something about how it was a big day. His enthusiasm didn't match his words. Before I could say anything else, he excused himself and walked away. As the evening went on, Vanessa basked in the attention. She made sure to go table to table, checking that everyone knew just how much she and Jake had overcome together. Then before the gifts were opened, she decided to give a speech. She stood at the front of the room, holding Jake's hand like a trophy. With a big, rehearsed smile, she started talking about strong marriages and how they required trust, shared values, and a firm foundation. There was a lot of talk about how a husband and wife should uplift each other and ensure financial security for the family's future. The irony was almost painful. Then, the moment I had been waiting for. A few guests suggested they start opening gifts early since some people had to leave soon. Vanessa, always loving a chance to be the center of attention, agreed instantly. She and Jake sat down in front of the table and guests started handing them presents to open. She smiled as she unwrapped expensive-looking boxes, holding up crystal vases and and designer home goods. And then she got to mine. The wrapping came off, and for a second she just stared at it. The title of the book was bold, clear as day: How to Spot Financial Abuse, a guide for recognizing control in marriage. There was an awkward pause, then a few muffled laughs. Some guests exchanged puzzled looks, clearly wondering if it was a joke. But Vanessa wasn't laughing. Her smile was tight, forced, and I could see the tension in her grip on the book. Vanessa forced out a short laugh. She held the book up and said, "Oh, a joke gift. How funny, Natalie." Her voice was light, but her grip on the book was tight. Her knuckles were turning white. But Jake? Jake was actually reading the back cover. He flipped through a few pages, his expression neutral, but his eyes scanning the text. He nodded to himself. That's when the whispers started. A few family members exchanged glances. Someone in the back muttered, "That's actually a useful book." Vanessa slammed it down on the table. The fake smile was gone. She turned to me, her voice sharp and clipped, accusing me of trying to ruin her special day. She said something about how she was a responsible wife and how people should stay out of her marriage. Her voice got louder, trying to laugh it off at first, but the anger seeped through. I just smiled sweetly. I just thought, since you care so much about finances, you'd appreciate it. It's educational. A few people in the room stifled laughs. Jake, still holding the book, quietly said, "Maybe I should actually read this." The second those words left his mouth, Vanessa's head snapped toward him. If looks could kill, he'd be dead on the spot. She yanked the book from his hands and grabbed his wrist, practically dragging him out of his chair. Without another word, she stormed out of the room, pulling him along. The guests sat there, silent for a moment, before the tension broke with an awkward chuckle from someone near the front. I picked up my champagne glass, took a slow sip, and enjoyed the moment. Vanessa had spent years controlling every situation, making sure she always had the upper hand. Tonight, for once, she wasn't the one in control. Aaron and I left the vow renewal shortly after Vanessa stormed out. The tension in the room had been thick enough to cut with a knife, and we both knew she wasn't done. If we stuck around, she would either come back and try to make a bigger scene or send someone else to do it for her. Either way, it wasn't worth it. As soon as we got home, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Vanessa was on a rampage. I had blocked her number earlier, but she must have been using a different one or getting someone else to send the messages for her. Text after text came through, each one angrier than the last. She called me jealous and a vindictive brat, ranting about how I had ruined her special night and how I always tried to tear her down. She claimed I had embarrassed her in front of her guests and made her look bad in front of Jake. It was all my fault, apparently. I put my phone on silent and tossed it on the counter, but it didn't stop. Every few seconds, another message popped up. Then, in the middle of Vanessa's meltdown, another message came through, but this one wasn't from her. It was from Jake. He thanked me for the book. That was the last thing I expected. He said he had started reading it and found it interesting. That was all he wrote, but it was enough to make me pause. Jake never stood up to Vanessa, never questioned her control. The fact that he was even acknowledging the book in a serious way meant something. A few minutes later, my mother called. She started off with a sigh, half scolding, half amused. She said the gift was a bit much, but she wasn't surprised by Vanessa's reaction. She knew how my sister was and admitted that Vanessa had always struggled with control. Still, she warned me that Vanessa wouldn't let this go. As expected, the family group chat wasn't quiet for long. By the time I checked it, my inbox was flooded with messages from relatives. Some were just curious about what had happened, while others took Vanessa's side. Apparently, she had been ranting to anyone who would listen, telling them she was attacked at her own vow renewal. According to her, I had gone out of my way to humiliate her, to make her marriage look bad. One aunt sent me a private message telling me Vanessa was acting like I had thrown a drink in her face. It didn't stop there. By the time I checked social media, Vanessa had already posted a dramatic Facebook status. Something about toxic siblings who can't handle seeing others happy. She painted herself as the victim, making it sound like I had ruined her night out of pure jealousy. Most of the replies were supportive, friends and distant family members chiming in with comments like "you deserve better," and "some people can't handle success." But then, right in the middle of all the sympathy, a cousin left a comment that made me laugh. "But why was the book relevant to you?" It got more likes than Vanessa's post. A few people started asking similar questions. Vanessa didn't reply to any of them. Then, another message from Jake. This time, he asked me if I knew any other signs of financial abuse. He didn't sound sarcastic or annoyed, he sounded serious. That was the moment I realized something had shifted. Jake was questioning things. Aaron rayed over my shoulder and let out a low whistle. He told me he was proud of me for standing up for myself, but warned that Vanessa wouldn't just let this go. He was right. Vanessa never let anything go. And then, just as suddenly as the messages had started, they stopped. No more texts, no more calls, just complete silence. That was more unsettling than the ranting. Vanessa's silence was never a good sign. Later that night, my mother called again. She said she had spoken to Vanessa and that my sister was calm now, which only made me more suspicious. Then, in a quieter voice, my mother told me to be careful. Vanessa was planning something. I didn't know what, but I knew better than to underestimate her. The next day, a cousin sent me an update. Apparently, after the vow renewal, Vanessa and Jake had a huge argument. People could hear them from the parking lot. It was the first time anyone had ever seen Jake actually push back against Vanessa. That's when I started wondering, was the book too relevant? Vanessa controlled everything. She bragged about managing their finances, about making all the decisions. But what if there was more to it? What if Jake reading that book wasn't just a minor inconvenience for her? What if it was a real threat? One thing was clear, this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The messages started coming in the next morning. Mutual friends, distant relatives, people who weren't even at the vow renewal. Everyone wanted to know what had happened. Some were vague, asking if there had been drama at the party. Others were more direct, saying Vanessa had told them I caused a scene and tried to humiliate her in front of Jake. Vanessa had wasted no time twisting the story. She painted herself as the victim, telling anyone who would listen that my gift was some kind of malicious attack. She conveniently left out the part where she had spent weeks bad-mouthing Aaron behind our backs. By mid-afternoon, I noticed something strange. Jake, who had been engaging with me after the vow renewal, suddenly stopped responding. Not even a read receipt. It was like he had vanished. A cousin filled me in. Vanessa had a talk with him. She told him that I was trying to destroy their marriage, that I was meddling in things that weren't my business. She made it seem like I had a personal vendetta against them. Aaron barely reacted when I told him. He just shrugged and said, "She's predictable." But I knew this was only the beginning. Vanessa didn't stay quiet unless she was planning something bigger. I didn't have to wait long to find out what. That evening, a message from an unknown number popped up on my phone. No introduction, no context, just a screenshot of Aaron's old bankruptcy records. The message underneath read, "Since you love exposing financial issues, let's see how your fiancé likes it." I showed it to Aaron immediately. He exhaled through his nose, clearly annoyed but not surprised. "She really dug this up," he said, shaking his head. "She's got too much time on her hands." She hadn't sent it from her own number, of course. Vanessa wasn't stupid, but there was no doubt in my mind that she was behind it. Minutes later, Vanessa posted a vague but very obvious message in the family group chat. It was a long, self-righteous monologue about how financial stability should be the foundation of marriage and how some people ignore red flags just because they don't want to be alone. It wasn't subtle. Some family members didn't even try to hide their agreement. Others seemed to catch on to the passive-aggressive jab. A few cousins sent me side messages asking if I was okay. I was fine, but I wasn't about to let this go. I called Vanessa. She picked up, already smug. When I asked if she had leaked Aaron's financial records, she didn't even deny it. She laughed and said something about how I didn't mind airing her dirty laundry. She was enjoying this. What she didn't know was that she wasn't as untouchable as she thought. Later that night, I got a message from one of Vanessa's friends, the last person I expected to hear from. She admitted that Vanessa had been going too far. She said Vanessa had been ranting about how she was going to make Aaron look like a loser in front of the family. The pieces were falling into place. The next morning, Aaron got an anonymous email at work. It contained his bankruptcy records. No message, no explanation, just an attempt to humiliate him in his professional life. Unfortunately for Vanessa, it didn't work. His boss already knew. But the timing was too perfect to be a coincidence. Vanessa wasn't just trying to win an argument anymore. She was trying to ruin Aaron's reputation. Meanwhile, Jake was completely silent. No texts, no responses. He had been engaging before, even questioning things. But now, it was clear Vanessa had tightened her grip. That was my breaking point. If Vanessa wanted to play dirty, I wasn't going to sit back and take it. I started collecting every piece of evidence I had about her controlling nature, messages from Jake, past conversations where he had expressed concern about their finances, even Vanessa's own words from before when she bragged about handling everything. Then I started digging deeper. A cousin who used to work in banking helped me understand how joint finances typically worked in marriages. The more I learned, the more suspicious I became. Then, another piece of the puzzle fell into my lap. A close friend of Jake's mentioned, offhandedly, that Jake once confided in him about not having access to their joint accounts. That was all I needed to hear. Vanessa had spent years controlling him, but now, for the first time, someone had given him the words to recognize what was happening. That's why she was spiraling. She wasn't just trying to get back at me, she was trying to shut him down before he could figure out the truth. This wasn't just about me anymore. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to make sure everyone saw Vanessa for who she really was. A few days after Vanessa leaked Aaron's bankruptcy records, a cousin sent me an unexpected message. Jake had tried to open a bank account in his own name. It didn't go well. Vanessa found out almost immediately. No one knew how. Maybe she saw an email, maybe she had alerts set up on their joint accounts, but the moment she realized what he had done, she lost it. She accused him of being ungrateful, of betraying their trust, and of not believing in their shared future. She didn't just yell, she manipulated. She convinced him that the only way to make things right was to give her full access to his work paychecks. It wasn't enough that she controlled their joint accounts. Now she wanted direct control over his income, and somehow he agreed. I knew then that Jake was still too deep under her influence. He had started to question things, but he was still afraid to act. So I took matters into my own hands. That night, I sent Jake an anonymous email. No names, no hints that it was from me. Just a collection of testimonies from men and women who had escaped financially controlling spouses. People who had ignored the red flags until it was too late. People who wished someone had warned them sooner. Jake didn't reply, but a few days later I heard from him. A short message, straight to the point. "Can we talk?" Vanessa can't know. We met at a quiet cafe, away from the usual places Vanessa might expect him to be. When he walked in, he looked exhausted. The same guy who used to be so easygoing now looked like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. He started talking immediately. He told me that he was starting to see it. The control, the way Vanessa made decisions for him without asking, the way she justified everything as protecting their future. But the moment he questioned anything, she turned it back on him. He admitted that, in their entire marriage, he had never actually seen their full financial records. He had no idea how much money they had. Every paycheck he earned, every savings account, every investment, Vanessa handled all of it. Then he told me something that made my stomach turn. The night before, Jake had asked Vanessa about their savings, something he rarely did. She got defensive, but when he finally convinced her to let him look at their account statements, he saw a large withdrawal. When he questioned her about it, for the first time, she didn't have an immediate answer. She got defensive, accused him of not trusting her, and told him that if he ever questioned her financial decisions again, he would regret it. He didn't ask what that meant. He didn't want to know. I told him the truth. He had to take control of his own finances. He had to start protecting himself. I offered to help him find a financial advisor, someone who could walk him through his rights and options. He nodded but didn't commit to anything yet. He was still scared. But Vanessa must have sensed something shifting. That same night, she suddenly surprised Jake with an expensive new car. She made a huge show of it, taking him to the dealership, acting like the perfect wife. She framed it as a gift, something to remind him of how much she loved him. But of course, there was a catch. The car would be in her name. For the first time, Jake said no. He thanked her but refused to sign the paperwork. Vanessa lost it. She wasn't used to hearing no. She spent the entire night trying to convince him, flipping between guilt-tripping, love-bombing, and anger. But he didn't budge. And that was just the beginning. A few days later, a friend invited Jake out for drinks. Normally, Vanessa would insist on coming along, but this time he told her he was going alone. At first, she acted like it wasn't a big deal. But the next morning, she ambushed him with a long speech about commitment and how real couples don't do things separately. She pressured him into canceling future plans, but by then, his friends had noticed. People were talking. Vanessa must have felt the shift because her behavior became more erratic. She cried to our parents, claiming that everyone was against her. She spun a story about how Jake was being poisoned against her, how I had planted ideas in his head. Our mother, who had always taken a neutral stance, finally saw the cracks. She and a few relatives suggested sitting Vanessa down for a real conversation about her controlling behavior. They wanted an intervention. I wasn't sure it would work. Vanessa wasn't the type to admit she was wrong, but I wasn't just relying on an intervention. I had one last card to play. Jake was waking up, but he still needed one final push. And I had just the thing to make Vanessa's entire world collapse. Vanessa didn't back down. After Jake refused to put the new car in her name and started asserting even the smallest bit of independence, she went into full damage control. She played the part of the wounded wife, telling him he was being influenced by toxic people and that if he really loved her, he would trust her completely. She framed everything as an attack on their marriage. According to her, him asking questions about their finances wasn't about fairness, it was him doubting her. It was him choosing outsiders over his wife. But this time, Jake didn't cave. For the first time in years, he stood his ground. He told her he wanted access to their accounts to see where their money was going. All of it. That's when Vanessa snapped. She screamed at him, accused him of not appreciating everything she had done for them. She threw out every manipulation tactic she could think of, calling him ungrateful, reckless, easily manipulated. She said if he was so obsessed with money, maybe he should have made more of it instead of relying on her. Instead of fighting back, Jake went silent, and that's when he made his next move. At my suggestion, he met with a lawyer. He didn't tell Vanessa. He didn't even tell our mother at first. He went in, laid everything out, the lack of access to his own accounts, the way Vanessa made financial decisions without him, the increasing pressure to sign over control of his paychecks. The lawyer's reaction said everything. Jake's situation was bad. Not only did Vanessa control their finances, but she had also accumulated a massive amount of debt, and not just in her name, in both of their names. She had taken out loans, maxed out credit cards, and dipped into their joint savings without telling him. Jake was in deeper than he even realized. That night, he asked Vanessa again, calmly, to show him their full financial records. He wanted to sit down, go over everything, and understand where their money was. Vanessa refused. She dodged the question, changed the subject, accused him of ruining their relationship by acting paranoid. And that's when our mother and I stepped in. We had a long talk with Jake, reminding him that this wasn't normal, that a marriage wasn't supposed to function like this, that he deserved to know where his own money was. The next day, Jake sat Vanessa down and asked one more time. She cried. She sobbed. She turned it into a huge dramatic moment, saying everything she had done was to protect them. She said she never meant to hurt him, that she just wanted to make sure they had a future, that she had only taken control because she didn't want them to struggle. Then, she blamed him. She told him the only reason she had to handle everything was because he didn't make enough. And for the first time in their marriage, Jake seriously considered leaving. He told her he needed time to think. That's when Vanessa shifted strategies. She started telling people that Jake was acting unstable. She reached out to mutual friends, hinting that he had been making reckless financial decisions and that she was worried about his mental health. She painted herself as a devoted wife trying to hold things together while her husband spiraled. It worked, for a while. Some friends took her side. Some relatives were wary of getting involved. But then, Jake started talking. With encouragement from his lawyer, he moved out. He didn't say much at first, but in small conversations with trusted friends, he told the truth. He told them how he had never seen their full financial records. He told them how Vanessa had been making decisions behind his back. He told them how she had kept him financially dependent on her. Word spread fast. People started seeing through Vanessa's act. Her social media took a hit. Friends stopped engaging with her posts. Some even unfollowed her. Her carefully curated image of the power couple started falling apart. Family members who had been on the fence started reconsidering. But Vanessa wasn't done. In a desperate attempt to save face, she posted a long, emotional message about people tearing marriages apart. She never named Jake. She never named me. But the message was clear. She blamed outside influences for ruining her marriage. She talked about how some people can't stand to see others happy. She made herself sound like the victim, like she was fighting for her marriage while everyone else tried to destroy it. It was the last move she had left. But it was too late. With Jake finally breaking free, I knew the next phase of the battle was coming. And this time, Vanessa had no idea what was about to hit her. Vanessa was unraveling. With Jake gone and her reputation slipping, she was in full-blown damage control. She called family members one by one, crying, saying Jake had been brainwashed by me, and that she was being unfairly turned into a villain. She painted herself as the devoted wife who had done everything for her husband, only to have him turn against her because of outside influences. Some people fell for it. Others were starting to see the cracks. Meanwhile, Jake was waking up. For the first time in years, he was experiencing life outside of Vanessa's grip. He opened his own bank account. He pulled his credit reports. And what he saw made his stomach drop. The numbers didn't add up. It wasn't just the debt Vanessa admitted to, it was worse. There were credit cards in his name that he never opened, loans taken out without his knowledge. Vanessa hadn't just been managing their finances, she had been drowning him in debt. Jake's lawyer confirmed the worst. Vanessa had convinced Jake to sign off on joint credit cards and loans over the years, always reassuring him that she would handle everything. He hadn't realized how much debt had piled up until he checked his credit report. Legally, Jake was tied to all of it. And Vanessa knew. She must have sensed that Jake was piecing things together because suddenly her strategy changed. She sent him long, emotional messages about how much she loved him, how they had built a life together, how she just wanted them to go back to the way things were. She begged him to meet her for dinner, to just talk. When that didn't work, she switched to anger. She blamed him for ruining their marriage, accused him of turning into a stranger, told him that if he walked away now, he would regret it. But it was too late. Jake, with guidance from his lawyer, started taking small steps, first opening a separate account, then reviewing his credit reports in private. It took him days to work up the courage, but he eventually froze any new charges on their joint cards and scheduled a consultation to figure out his legal options. Vanessa had always used Aaron's past bankruptcy as a weapon against me, acting like financial struggles made someone unworthy. Now she was drowning in debt herself. And the irony? Everyone knew it. Jake told a few trusted people about what he had found. Word spread fast. The same family members who had once blindly defended Vanessa started distancing themselves. The same friends who had believed her poor abandoned wife act started whispering about the truth. Vanessa, realizing that her financial control was slipping, tried a new angle. She went around telling people she was letting Jake go with love. She claimed that she was graciously stepping back, allowing him to find himself because she wanted what was best for him. Behind the scenes, she made everything difficult. She delayed paperwork, disputed assets, and tried to guilt-trip Jake into reconsidering. And she refused to move out of their home, dragging out the separation as long as possible. But Jake wasn't playing her games anymore. Then, he made his first public move. He posted a statement on social media. It wasn't dramatic, but it was clear. He thanked his friends and family for their support. He said he was taking control of his finances after years of being in the dark. He made it clear that he was moving forward, that he wouldn't be manipulated anymore. It wasn't long before people started calling Vanessa out. For the first time, the conversation shifted. Instead of sympathy, people started questioning her. Jake didn't respond to Vanessa's attempts to spin the narrative. He didn't have to. The truth spoke for itself. Meanwhile, Aaron and I finally had a moment of peace. After all the chaos Vanessa had thrown at us, the gossip, the personal attacks, even the leaked financial records, it was over. Aaron, who had stayed calm through all of it, finally let out a long breath and said, I'm actually glad we stood our ground. And he was right. We never had to go low. We just let Vanessa destroy herself. And the fallout? It hit her hard. A few months later, Jake was officially living on his own. He told me he was seeing a therapist to work through everything Vanessa had put him through. He was still processing it all, but for the first time in years, he was free. And Vanessa? Her perfect image was crumbling. The luxury car she had paraded around in, repossessed. The upscale house she had flaunted, foreclosure notice. People noticed when she started quietly selling off her designer bags and jewelry. Friends who once admired her began avoiding her. She had built her entire identity around looking successful, around being the one who had it all. Now she had nothing. And the best part? It all started with one single book. Vanessa did the rest. And me? I walked away with my head held high, because in the end, karma always wins.